Now, while Brazil battles on to get the infrastructure ready, the stars of the show, the players, are going through the process of being pruned down from provisional squads to the final 23 that will don the colours of their respective nations in what some term the greatest show on earth, the Football World Cup. Today, we'll look at 4 teams from Europe that most people speak about. We talk about the Netherlands, we talk about Germany, we talk about the traditional powerhouses of Europe, as well as England. Now, joining me to talk about this is Mark Haskins, and good morning and welcome to AM Live, AM News.
Kendall, thanks for having me, sir.
So let's talk about the world champions of Spain. Let's start there. What do you make up of this particular squad?
Well, obviously they come in as favourites, being ranked number 1. It's still a provisional squad. They have, I think, 30 players on their list at the moment. So I expect a few surprises there. Obviously, some big names are going to miss out. I think in the striking department, they have quite a few strikers. So there are going to be some guys left disappointed there. The likes of Torres, Negredo. There's a few that are going to miss out.
Right, now let's talk about someone like Diego Costa. He's a Brazilian. He's naturally born in Brazil, but he's been naturalized as a player for Spain. This is Brazil's loss and Spain's gain, you think?
Definitely. I mean, he's proven himself to be a really quality striker. It's not every day that someone born in Brazil chooses another country over Brazil to play football for. So it's definitely Brazil's loss. I think they need that type of player up front. And Spain stand to gain from his decision to play for Spain.
And then we'll talk about the captain, the talismanic Iker Casillas. Do you reckon that he's still got it to do the goods as captain?
Now, he's proven himself over the years. I'm a big fan of his. He's been a stalwart. He's represented his country well, and he's been an inspirational captain for them. So I think he'll definitely play his part.
Right, now, are there any notable exclusions from this particular team that you would say, oh, that's a surprise?
I wouldn't say an exceptional exclusion, except maybe for Isco, who's shown he's a good player. He's come his first season at Real Madrid. He hasn't maybe played enough games to win a call-up, I don't know. But there aren't any major surprises in terms of the Spanish lineup. All
right, now let's go to Germany now. Traditional powerhouses of European football. We look at a player like Jerome Boateng, whose brother plays for Ghana. Was this inclusion a natural one?
Definitely. I think at the last World Cup here in South Africa, he was just being introduced. He wasn't a regular in the team. But now, since 4 years on, he's really proven himself at Bayern Munich. He's their number 1 centre back, and so he's definitely one of Germany's best at the back, and he's proven himself. And I think he was a natural call-up.
Okay, and here's an interesting one. We've got a 35-year-old, where most teams are dropping their 35-year-olds. We've got Miroslav Klose, who's basically spearheading their attack. Is at 35 years old. Do you think this was a good decision to have him in, and as opposed to much younger strikers?
Klose is definitely the type of player you want in the lineup. He's been there before. It's been there, done it. He's actually close to becoming the all-time leading scorer in World Cup history. Ronaldo's on 15 goals and Klose is 1 behind him. So he stands to make history at this World Cup. And the funny thing with Germany is that they have their midfield is full. They've got a really good midfield, and they only have 2 natural strikers. So he was a natural choice as well. If they need a striker, and he's the man to go to.
Would that have been? Do you think that's a good decision to go with only 2 natural strikers in the provisional squad, which is still going to get trimmed down?
The way they play, the football they play, the brand of football they play, they have midfielders who always come through, and their midfielders always get in and amongst the goals. Excuse me. So they definitely will. They have good enough players to get amongst the goals, so they don't need a vast array of strikers. The 2 that they have will suffice because their midfielders are capable of scoring goals.
It's people like Mesut Ozil, for example. Do you think his performances at Arsenal merit inclusion in this particular squad?
I've heard the coach has asked him to improve his body language. Mesut Ozil, sometimes he's not always a consistent player, but when he's on his best day, he's exceptional. So you definitely want him at his best, and I think the coach knows how to get the best out of him. And I think he'll definitely play a big role for Germany, but you got a lot of guys around him as well. Your Lucas Podolskis who can score a goal. You got Schweinsteiger. There's a whole lot of guys who can come through and play their part. You get Müller as well. Müller was actually joint top scorer at the last World Cup, and he actually finished with a golden boot because he was joint top scorer and he had the most assists. So that earned him the golden boot at the last World Cup. So you have guys from midfield who can come through and do the job for them.
Nice one. Now let's go through to the Netherlands. Do you think Van Persie has got what it takes to be the captain that's required?
No, I mean he's proven himself. During the qualifiers, he was actually the leading scorer in Europe during the qualifiers. So he's still, I mean, he knows how to find the net. He knows the back of the net, and he'll definitely do the job. He's led the line quite well, and is now Holland's all-time leading goal scorer. So definitely someone that Holland will look to.
Now, a notable exclusion would have been in this particular Netherlands squad is Van der Wiel. He played in the last World Cup final. What do you think about that exclusion?
It's difficult to say what brought that on. He played, like you say, in the last World Cup final, so he has that experience. It's difficult. I don't know if he fell out with a coach or if there's an up-and-coming youngster that may have just pipped him to the position. But it's a tough decision for these coaches, and one I guess he had to make.
Right, now, okay, let's now go to England. A lot of household names in this particular squad. I mean, a lot of people watch English Premier League day in, day out. We talk about the youthful look of this particular squad that Hodgson has chosen. Do you think that this is Hodgson starting to take risks and dropping the veterans that get them shunted out before the quarters?
Yeah, I guess in terms of England, they always come into the World Cup with a lot of expectation. And so I think bringing in the youngsters, it just kind of keeps them under the radar somewhat. And I think that might count in their favor, because if there's too much pressure around the team, they often falter. But I think bringing in the youngsters will also give them good experience. But there's a good balance, because there is a lot of experienced players within the team. So finding the right balance, I think, was key for the coach, and I think he's done that.
So, I mean, the exclusion of Ashley Cole and Jermaine Defoe in a couple of seconds. Can you tell us, are these like big mistakes?
I think Defoe is probably the big mistake. I think Defoe has shown that he can score goals out of nothing, and that I feel England might miss. With Ashley Cole, because he wasn't the regular number one, Leighton Baines has now become England's number one. It was good to bring in a youngster, but I think they might miss Defoe.
All right. Now, I want to thank you very much, Mark. We'll be doing a lot more of this. In fact, you stay tuned and make sure that you stay with us as we do more of these World Cup squads analyses to make sure that we cover the South American teams, as well as, before we do the weekend, we'll be covering the African teams.